Now and forever, we bring IT to life.
Hi, I'm Chris Zappala. I'm the Principal Product Manager for Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping. And in this webinar, I'm going to share with you what's new in ADDM 10.2. Our agenda for today includes a brief review of the features and enhancements we've made in this release of ADDM, including support for the discovery of management controllers, blade containers, additional storage discovery capabilities, and improvements we've made to CMDB synchronization. Lastly, we'll share with you ways in which you can keep in touch with BMC and participate in our ADDM user community. The new features in ADDM 10.2 can be grouped into these three customer benefit areas. The first is awareness, the second is savings, and the third is collaboration. You can think of these things as themes. We are always growing the ADDM content library to enable you to use ADDM to discover new software products, new infrastructure types, and so on. In terms of awareness, version 10.2 adds discovery for management controllers, blades, and chassis, and additional storage-specific discovery capabilities, including support for SAN switches. Savings. We continue to look for ways to reduce total cost of ownership. This is your cost of managing ADDM in your environment, making it easier, faster, and cheaper to operate. In version 10.2, we've completely redesigned CMDB sync for better performance and ease of use. In terms of collaboration, using ADDM to improve ITSM and ITSM processes is what it's all about. A new graphical view allows you to preview how objects in ADDM will synchronize into the Atrium CMDB. You can also synchronize to multiple Atrium CMDBs, which is especially useful when you have a dev or staging environment that you need to sync to before doing so in production. The first new feature we'll talk about is management controllers. These are remote access controller and integrated lights-out management cards, which ship with pretty much every server to enable out-of-band management. We've enhanced discovery to provide detailed information about remote access controllers and integrated lights-out management, including the relationship to the server in which the controller card is installed. This makes out-of-band troubleshooting significantly easier by enabling you to quickly find the remote access controller card for a faulty server. And it takes the arduous task of tracking down remote access controller cards which require firmware updates and makes it a snap. A fun fact, with this capability you can even run discovery when a server is turned off. Here's a quick view of the taxonomy so that you can see how ADDM models the relationships. You'll notice that we've added a new node kind called management controller that relates to the host or a host that it manages. In CMDB, it synchronizes as a BMC hardware system component. Here's a table of the remote access controller cards that we support as of today. If we don't support the one that you're looking for, don't worry. Let us know and we'll get it on the TKU roadmap. Support for additional management controllers can always be delivered via monthly TKU updates. Blade containers. Along the same lines as remote access controller discovery, this is a further enhancement to enable you to use ADDM to discover blade servers and enclosures. You'll be able to see detailed information about the servers and chassis, as well as identify the blade to chassis relationship and the role of the blade in the enclosure, making troubleshooting easier and providing a more complete model of any application that is dependent on these types of systems. Here's a quick view of the taxonomy so that you can see how ADDM models the relationships. You'll notice that we've used the existing node kind host container and then list blades and other details which are stored in hardware detail. If one of the blades is found to be a host that ADDM scanned, a relationship is created with the host. The same holds true if a blade is a network device that ADDM scanned. In CMDB, both synchronize as BMC computer system. If a management controller manages the chassis, this is also modeled and synced to CMDB. Here's a table of the ones that we support today. If there are others that you need, we can help with that. Let us know and we'll get them on the list for delivery in a future TKU. And now, Wid will show you some examples of how this stuff is represented in ADDM.
You'll see that I'm at the Infrastructure tab for ADDM. And as you know, previous ADDM users, it provides a wealth of information. And in the upper left, we have all our icons that represent the items we discover. And we have one new icon called Management Controllers. If we click on here, we'll take a look at this. And this is where Chris did an excellent job of introducing to us what a management controller is, why we care about them. So in our sample data today, we have two types: chassis management controllers, and then we have what are called remote access controllers. Straightforward enough. A remote access controller, it's separate, and it's used to control hosts. It has its own processor, its own memory, its own network connection, its own access to the system bus. And you'll see here that we have mostly Dell products. And of the Dell products, we have the Dell remote access controller, and then we have ones with the I in front of it, and it just means that it's integrated, so it's piggybacked onto the server motherboard. The chassis management controllers are for basically managing a set of blade servers that are in a chassis, since they don't have something to manage it at the chassis level itself. So we'll look at both of these. Let's start by looking at which one? This remote access controller. Now in here, we'd have all the typical things that you'd find in a discovery: the vendor, the model, serial number, and as we look further down, the network interfaces, we see the IP address, and most importantly, the thing called the managed host. So this remote access controller goes ahead and actually manages this particular host. And from here, we could go ahead and jump into the host and see further information about it. But we get a level of information from here just to give you information. Let's slide back up, and we'll look at a chassis management controller and slide in from there. So if we go ahead and look at this particular item, it doesn't really matter. You'll see chassis management controller. One thing I didn't point out before was the actual URL that you would use to access the interface to go ahead and, through the management controller, manage the system. We have the vendor, so forth, serial, and then down here, instead of just a host, we have a whole host container, a blade enclosure that we're managing. And we can go ahead and actually click on that blade enclosure, and it'll bring us there. And the information we see here is the details. These are the individual blades that are in the chassis, and then above it, this is one particular blade that we actually did ADDM discovery on, so we would get to all the details. I'll take us through that in a minute. I just wanted to show the things we capture here. Let me slide back. And slide up here and go to the infrastructure tab. So we've seen chassis management controllers, we've seen remote access controllers, but we actually have, in a sense, a third kind of controller, but it's also a network device, so it falls into this bucket called network devices. And that is from Cisco, a UCS. It's a SAN switch and a management controller. So if we click on that, we'll see all the things that a switch shows you in terms of network interfaces, in terms of fiber channel ports, but then once again, you can actually access and see the chassis or the blade enclosure, and from there we could actually drill into that chassis and work our way from there. So there's really three ways to take a look at or access that information. Let's go back up here. Now, one thing I wanted to show was, in terms of discovery and in terms of credentials, we have a new kind of credential, and it's called an XML API. And that we use to access two manufacturers' management controllers. We have the HP integrated lights out devices, as well as the Cisco UCS stuff that we just looked at. So this credential allows us to get much more information from that management controller. We also use SNMP to gather information for those that don't have an interface this way. Let's go back to the Infrastructure tab. Now, one thing that we've had for a long time is host container icon. But what we discovered is not as much as what we now discover. We have more information, more detailed. For instance, ADDM can now identify in which container a blade resides. So it can look at a container, and as I showed you, it'll show you all the blades in there. We didn't have that before. So if we take a look at one of these containers, here it is. And just like before, we have the list of blades that are in the container. I can do show all 12, and we can see them. Let me go ahead and click this bottom one. So from the management controller perspective, this is the amount of information that's captured. But it's also connected to our detailed discoveries that we do. So I did run a discovery on one of these blades, and we can click here and walk right to all the discovery information like you'd see anywhere else for any other host that we've gone and discovered. So we went from the controller to the, well, in this case, we started with the chassis, looked at all the different blades in the chassis, and jumped right into all the detailed discovery information for that particular host in that chassis. Let me slide back up here, go back to the Host tab, and I think at this point I'm going to switch back to Chris. So as you saw, we went and looked at our new management controllers, our remote access controllers, our chassis management controllers. Then we looked at network devices. We looked at the fact that we have a SAN switch that also acts as a management controller. Then we went and actually looked at the host containers that these management controllers manage. And then we walked into there. So I think it's a good point to stop. We'll go back to Chris, and then from there we'll come back for another demonstration in a minute.
Additional storage discovery. We've made several enhancements to storage discovery in ADDM 10.2. One of the coolest new storage-related features is host-side linking. You can now see which storage volumes a host is really using, or not using. This includes direct attached storage linkage to local disk drives. Note that NAS linkage is something that we've supported all along. Please also note that in 10.2 we only support Linux and ESX platforms for storage detail and linking, other platforms to come in future TKU releases. In terms of new content, we've added support for SAN switches, Cisco and Brocade ones to be precise, as part of our standard device support. This means that all customers will get basic device information. Support for additional SAN switch vendors may come in future TKU updates. Discovery has also been enhanced to include support for additional SAN devices including IBM XIV and Dell Compellent, with support for EMC Solera planned for delivery in the June TKU. And once again, over to WID for a demo.
We're at the home page, and we're also at the default dashboard that talks about the latest improvements in 10.2. We're going to talk about our improvements in storage right now. So if we look at our different dashboards, we'll see that we have our standard storage overview dashboard. I also made a storage overview update dashboard. In this dashboard, I just rearranged a couple of the pods and also made it so that if you'd like to show a potential customer how easy it is to rearrange this, the edit button's right there, so you can talk about adding particular pods to the dashboard or not. So that's very easy. Now, what we've done is we've enhanced the SAN storage capability so that we now show which storage volumes a host is actually using. And we've done a few other local storage things. As you can see here, we have more reports in a new section called Host Storage Reports. These would be SAN storage volumes used by hosts or physical disks used by hosts. If we go ahead and click on physical disks used by hosts, you can see that it provides the host name, and typically it shows exactly the disk drive that's in the particular host. So that's nice, a new feature that we have there. Now, we also have SAN storage volumes used by hosts. So if we look at that, you can see the different hosts and across the way which volume they're using, the name, all that information. If we just take a look at this particular list, up will pop the very first host on that list, and it'll show you all the details of that host, as well as we come down here, the local system, how that goes ahead and maps to a storage volume, and then the storage volume ID, how it maps to a storage system. So that's pretty good there as well. Let's go back to the Home tab. Now we can go to hosts connected to SAN storage. Obviously, once again, this is another way of looking at that data, but it's this time looking by host versus looking by storage volume. Now, if we look down a little bit further, let's expand this. And let's look at this very bottom one, TWESX01. So this is a Dell physical box. As you can see, it's running, VMware ESX40, all the virtual machines on it. If we slide down further, we see information in terms of the fiber channel port, the worldwide node name, the worldwide port name, the particular cluster it's connected to. Then we go further down and we see our file systems. So we see the second one called Storage 1 and the fourth one called VMFS. Those are both local drives, and we can see their drive names here. So you can see the mapping. And then if we look at the, as I said, if you look at the first and the third, those map down to these storage volumes here on the TW cluster SAN. And we can go to this volume ID number 4, and we can see how that maps over to the storage system and all the way to the storage pool. So you can walk any potential customer through the fact that you can go from the host to the storage volume and all the way back to the storage system. If we go back here, you'll also note that we have the different colors of pink and yellow, which are indicators of how much free space is left on the various volumes. So let's go back and look at some other information. Back to the home page. And we can go to hosts connected to NAS storage systems. And here we have a list, and let's look at Bacon. So if we look at Bacon, we can see it's a Unix machine running Red Hat. Pardon me. And if we slide down, it is in fact not only connected to, if we look at the PCI to the worldwide node name to the port. Not only connected to NAS, it's also connected to SAN storage as well. So we can see volume 109 connects over here, and we could work our way through the SAN storage, and then as well our NAS storage over here, the file systems connecting to the disk drives. Now we'll go back up. Here we are as before on the infrastructure tab. We'll take a look at network devices. Now we come down and we'll look at the UCS Manager A. We looked at this before since it's both a chassis management controller and a communication switch. And if we slide down and look at all the things that it's connected to, you'll see once again that it is connected to our host Bacon, and we could walk over to our host there. So I hope I've given you a quick overview to help you walk through the data. Thanks again.
New CMDB synchronization. What's new in the new CMDB sync is dramatically improved performance. It is much faster. We've improved filtering, and we've made it possible to sync to more than one Atrium CMDB from ADDM. The new overview page shows all of the CMDBs that ADDM is configured to sync to. From here, sync to CMDBs can be paused, unpaused, enabled, and disabled. This will be useful to push ADDM data to development and production CMDBs simultaneously, for instance. There is also a new command line tool for CMDB sync that enables you to script these operations for the purposes of automation. We're providing the same override directive for sync mappings that we have for patterns. This is effectively an overlay capability so that in the rare cases when sync mapping customizations cannot be undone with separate extension mappings, sync mappings can now be overridden in the same way that patterns can, so that your customizations can peacefully coexist with TKU updates. Last but not least, a graphical view allows you to preview how objects in ADDM will synchronize in terms of the common data model. Wrapping up, we'll invite you to keep in touch with us. The best way to do that is through interaction with the ADDM community. There are lots of members, lots of discussions. There's a forum for the submission of ideas. These are things like feature requests or enhancements that you may think would be worthwhile to share with us. You can also participate in our beta or pre-release community there. Besides this, we have local and regional user groups, and you can always reach out directly to either myself or Raphael Chauvel. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy ADDM 10.2.
Now and forever, we bring IT to life.